Hi, everybody. My name is Laura, and welcome to tonight's webinar. It's really wonderful to see so many people and also a lot of new faces. I'd like to begin the webinar by just quickly introducing Cynthia. So Cynthia Lee Rose is co-founder of the Awakened Life Project, based here in Portugal and with members in many other countries. I met Cynthia 11 years ago. And during all of these years, I'm continually blown away by her passion and her ability to help people see beyond their limiting patterns and ideas of themselves. And instead, she helps us realize that we're already free and happy right now. So I'm always really, really happy and excited to see what unfolds on these webinars. And I really encourage you that when it comes to the Q&A part, if you have a question or even a comment, something you want to share, then really don't hold back. And with that, I'll hand over to Cynthia.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Oops. It's nice to see so many people. I think there's a lot more coming, but we're going to get started with a short meditation and they can sneak in while we're meditating. Okay, so if everybody can just sit up straight. And if you're sitting in a chair, have your feet on the ground, back straight, shoulders relaxed, and closing your eyes. And just take a moment to just settle yourself. Just sit quietly for just a few seconds. And then allow yourself to take a deep breath in through the nose, expanding the belly, and exhaling and releasing. So again, inhale. And as you inhale, allow yourself to feel the breath coming into the body and the body expanding. And as you exhale, again, allow yourself to feel the release of the breath and the body relaxing. So again, inhaling, feeling, exhale, feel and release. And one more time with a deep breath in. And feel the body receiving the breath. And as you exhale and you release, feel the tension just drifting away. Okay, and just continue on your own. And when you're ready, you can just breathe a little more shallow than you are now, but allow the body to receive and to release. Just take a moment to feel the body being breathed and enjoy it. Receive the breath, release the breath, and enjoy the breathing process. The body is an amazing gift that we're all given. And as the body is being breathed, we can get in touch with that body that we've been given. We can feel it. We can receive the gift. And we can release any tension. Most of the time, we're completely unconscious of breathing. Most of the time, we're completely unconscious of the body. And most of the time, we're completely unconscious of feeling. So just take a moment to become more conscious of the simplicity that you're incarnated in a body, and that body is being breathed. And you are aware of the process. You're aware of the sensations of the body. You're aware of the sensations of hearing, sound, of smell. So feel as you listen and you hear. Feel as you recognize the energy that's going through your body right now. Feel the fact that you are awake and you're alive. Most of the time, we don't even recognize that we're awake and alive. You can feel the stillness within yourself, even if the mind is busy, even if the body feels pain. Just take a moment to recognize that you might be aware of a busy mind, and you might be aware of pain in the body. But you are that which is aware, which is very still, already deeply relaxed, and already free from any pain or agitation of the mind. So recognize that you are awake. You are awake to your body breathing. You're awake to the sensations in the body. And you are awake to any movement of mind. So allow yourself to be aware that you are awake and feel it. Feel the vibration in the body and feel the vibration of the room around you. You just have to open up to it because it's already there, waiting for you to notice. So be still, relax, be awake. Recognize that you're already alert. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to create anything. All you do is recognize. which you're already aware of. Are you aware of the movement of mind right now? Are you aware of my voice, the sound of my voice? Are you aware of your chest going up and down as the breathing occurs? Are you aware of pain in your body? If the answer is yes, then you can recognize that you're not as unconscious as you might think you are. You just have to make effort to recognize what you're already conscious of. And just rest as that awareness, as objects come and objects go. Sensations change, they arise, they fall away. But you do not. You, as consciousness itself, is already awake, alert, never sleeps, never changes, always deeply at ease, full of love, and life. So in the last minute of this meditation, just relax. You don't need to try to do anything. You don't need to try to have any experience. You're just sitting in a chair on a couch. Nothing's really going on. And just be content, no matter what your experience is. Even if you think you're doing it wrong, you're not getting it, you don't know what I'm talking about, doesn't matter. Just be content with that. All right, and take a deep breath in. Feel the body expanding. And exhale, and allow the body to relax and wake up. And one more time as you inhale and exhale and open your eyes. Okay. So the title of the webinar tonight is Sacrifice of Ego is to Feel. Okay. I think this is just a really important connection that we need to make between ego and feeling and sacrifice. So I'm just going to outline kind of the three elements that are included in that title. So the first one is sacrifice. So sacrifice, basically, in a simple definition, is that it's the willingness to give up something that no longer serves you. That's why it's a sacrifice. It no longer serves you. You're willing to give it up for something higher, something greater, something else. Okay, so that's the first part of the title. Okay, and ego, for all of you that are new, the definition of ego that I use is the insistence that separation is actually real. The insistence that you're isolated, you're alone, you're restricted, you're contracted. Okay, that's what ego is. It's not an entity. It's not a boogeyman. It's basically a pattern that arises in any given moment, and it's your activity when you identify with that pattern. And when you identify with a pattern or a thought, in that moment, if you make that thought mean anything about you, for example, a thought arises that says, I'm stupid, and you make that thought mean something about you, then all of a sudden, through that identification, you've decided that I'm a stupid person, which creates a separation between you and everybody else, because you're a stupid person. And then you have something that you need to protect. What are you protecting? You're protecting the identity that I'm a stupid person. You could be a fantastic person, whatever identity you have. And everybody usually has multiple identities because it depends on what thought arises and it depends on what you do with it. So you can be a stupid person at one moment and identify with that thought. Then you can identify with the next thought that says, I'm a brilliant, intelligent person. And then you have that image. So you have stupid image and you have intelligent image. And then you're trying to actually act from those ideas about yourself. But it doesn't matter what image that you have. If you identify with a thought and you make it mean something about you, a you that doesn't exist, you create the belief that you're separate in that moment because you have something to protect. And what are you protecting? You're protecting the mask that you've put on that basically says, this is who I am. So waking up means to take the mask off and the next mask off and the next mask off, because we have multiple masks. Okay, so ego is something that is an insistence that something that's not true is true. So it's the insistence that you're separated, isolated, and alone. And the truth is that there is only one consciousness, and it's being animated through all these forms that are on the screen right now. It's animating everything that you can perceive, everything that you can see, but the plant behind me, my dog outside barking. There's only one consciousness. There's one thing going on here. And that one thing is who we all are. And then we have these different modifications of that one. Okay, so we have sacrifice, which is giving up something that no longer serves you. We have ego, that's insisting that you're isolated, separate, and alone. Okay, it's insisting that something that's not true is true. And what ego does when you're insisting that something that's not true is true, you're avoiding that which is true. Okay, everybody with me so far? It's very, very simple. But it's like it can be very simple in your head. But then when you go around to like trying to live what I'm saying, all of a sudden it can get very complex. And I think everybody knows that in their own experience. Okay, so the next part of the title is feeling. So when I'm talking about feeling, I'm not talking about emotions that are coming and going at any given time. Like you're freaking out and you feel very emotional and you just dramatize it. And, you look somewhat like a crazy person, and then someone knocks on your door, you drop the whole dramatization of the particular emotion that's rising in that moment, and another emotion arises, you open the door and you act completely differently. So I'm not talking about the fluctuation of emotion. I'm talking about feeling, like really allowing yourself to not be protected, allowing yourself to actually feel what your experience is. So most of the time, most people are avoiding feeling. You avoid feeling pain. You avoid feeling insecurity. You avoid feeling love. You avoid feeling happiness. It's almost like the amount of feeling that we actually do in any given day is not very much compared to what's possible. Okay, can any of you recognize how much you avoid feeling? Yeah, okay, good. And then you have to ask yourself, well, why do I avoid feeling? Because if you feel, I just want to make this super clear, because if you actually allow yourself to feel, you will get in touch with something that is prior to or before anything that's actually happening in time and space. It's prior to and before any identity that you have about yourself, that you've created through the identification with thought and feeling over time. It's prior to any of your history. It's prior to any of your excuses not to be a free human being. So we're basically conditioned to not feel. If you look at the society we live in now, everything is moving super fast. Everything fast, fast, fast. The faster, the better. And if we don't get it fast, we start getting more agitated. So there's an agitation going on with the speed, and there's an agitation going on with the frustration when the speed isn't fast enough. So we're very connected to this emotional agitation. And of course, we personalize that. And when we personalize that emotional agitation, then we get to be, the identity we have is we're a victim, the world is horrible. Everything's always, everything's wrong. It's everybody else's fault. I'm doing the best I can. It creates a whole persona that is basically just a life of suffering and an avoidance of happiness, avoidance of the freedom of who you already are, and it's an avoidance of feeling. So I just want to kind of, instead of talking a lot about ego at this point, I made a little bit of a list because I started to think about, well, what is true feeling? What is it to truly feel? Now, probably nobody has ever asked that question. Have you ever asked that question of yourself? Well, what does it even mean to truly feel? Have you ever thought about how much do I feel? Have you ever thought about how much I don't feel? Have you ever gotten frustrated with the acknowledgement that you can't feel because you feel so shut down, right? I just can't feel. I'm doing the best I can and it's just not happening. And you're trying and you're trying and you're trying, but you can't make yourself feel. All you can do is let go of the resistance to feeling. And then all of a sudden something opens up. Okay. So on my list, I basically have true feeling is when you have no protection from the arising of experience. Okay, so just think about it. No protection from the arising of experience, whether it be a thought, a feeling, a situation, or whatever. So just take a moment to recognize how often you're protecting yourself from other people, from situations, from your own mind, from, almost everything. Okay, so true feeling, and when you allow yourself to truly feel, when you actually do it, there's no protection from the arising of experience. Now, if you just look at that first thing that I said on the list, you see your whole life can change if you actually go, wow, you mean if I feel and I truly feel, then I won't have a fearful relationship to the arising of my experience. I won't have a protective relationship to all the other people out there. I won't have a protective relationship from my own connection to the divinity that I am. Okay. So just really, each thing on this list is actually super important. So I'm going to go through them, but I could just stop with each one and we could talk about it for an hour. So the next one is true feeling will open the door to that which is prior to egoic patterns. Okay, so basically true feeling is the doorway. It's the path to going beyond this habitual action of identification with thought and feeling and making something about a separate self that doesn't exist. So it opens the door to truth. Now, when you're feeling pain, when you start to recognize pain or insecurity or fear, all you want to do is get away from it. But you see, if you don't do that and you just allow yourself to feel, the heart opens, and not only you might feel the pain more, you might feel the fear more, but you are looking at it from a completely different point of view. than being inside the pain, inside the illusion of the egoic self. Because if you're inside the illusion of the egoic self, you have no motivation to feel. Because as long as you're cut off from feeling, you see this Death Star of ego is basically intact. But when you allow yourself to feel and the heart opens, you see then all of a sudden, you see beyond that contracted state of consciousness. You recognize something different. Everybody with me so far? So if you're just thinking about that in and of itself, everybody's like walking around going, you know, if you have any kind of spiritual inclination, the movement is there's got to be more to life than this. I want love. I want to be love. I want to give love. There's a deep desire in all human beings, and some are more awake to it than others. But obviously, all of you must be awake to it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on this webinar. So you're here because either you're frustrated because you know there's more to life than this, or you're here because there's a longing for something that's so much bigger and so much more beautiful than the life that you're living now. Something has driven you here. So when you allowed yourself to truly feel, you actually start to recognize that which has driven you here to wake up is your true self. It's not separate from you. You know, why did everybody come on this webinar? Why, for all of you that have come on webinars before, why do you keep coming back? Something is pulling you, right? And then usually on these webinars, as we're together, as we are now, you know, that pull and that desire for unity and connectiveness and joy and happiness, we actually start to experience that on the webinar with each other, to the point that when we get done at the end, nobody wants to leave. We're all just sitting there with big smiles on our faces. Why? Because we allowed ourselves to feel, the intimacy that we have between us, even though we're on a screen. We recognize that truth, and it makes us happy. You know, and then it's like, I don't want to get off the webinar. I'm happy. I don't want to go back to my old life where I'm just miserable, isolated, and alone. I want to be happy. So all you have to do is look at your own experience, for those of you that have been on the webinar before, and I'm sure you can look at other times where you feel that. Okay, so true feeling. Next thing, this is only number 3. True feeling expands and releases the contraction around the heart. So true feeling expands and releases the contraction around the heart. So just feel that for a moment. If you relax the contraction around your heart, you see, then you start to experience more space. You start to experience more depth. You start to experience happiness, but you also start to get in touch with love. And it's not a love that's connected to a particular person. It's not a love that comes and goes. It's the essence of who you are. You see, it's right here, right now, waiting for you to feel it. And if you're having trouble feeling it, don't worry about it. Just feel that you're having trouble feeling. Because if you just feel that you're having trouble feeling, you will get in touch with that which is prior to that contraction. Because you're feeling, even if you're feeling that you're not doing it right, or whatever you think you're feeling, if you allow yourself to feel that you're completely miserable, you see, you feel, and it's the feeling that actually opens the heart. It doesn't matter what you're feeling in that moment. It's the fact that you've stopped avoiding the feeling. So if you're afraid, if you're sad, if you're upset, what do we try to do usually when we have those kind of feelings? We want to get away from it because what do we want to do? We don't want the intensity of being alive. We basically want to flatline ourselves, go back to sleep, be half alive, not engage, not be vibrantly or ecstatically here. And a lot of us just, have wanted to not be here in this incarnation. Life is not that great. If you look at it, it's like most of the time it's full of suffering. So what's the inclination then? It's like, okay, I'm suffering. I don't want to be here. Okay, I'm not going to feel, oh, that's good because now I feel very numb. But you see, for all of you, the numbness is not enough because you're here. You all know what I'm talking about to some degree. So if you feel numb, the way out is not to avoid the feeling of being numb. It's to feel it. And if you allow yourself to even feel the fact that you're numb, it will open the door to your true self. So that's what I'm saying. It's not, nobody is stuck in this situation. So true feeling expands and releases the contraction around the heart. Doesn't that sound good? It sounds much better than being miserable and closed and shut down. Well, at least in the world I live in, that's my preference. I'm pretty sure that's your preference too. Okay, true feeling shows you the self that is already free. So I tell you, if you're willing to feel, if you're willing to feel pain, if you're willing to feel suffering, if you're willing to even feel that you were really a jerk to somebody, if you're willing to feel guilt, if you're willing to feel anything, the act of feeling will show you a self that is already free. Do you see why I'm saying that nobody is stuck? Because even if all of your thoughts, 100% of your thoughts were just, or 100% of your feelings were negative, so-called negative. You see, even feeling those so-called negative things will open your heart and bring you to that which is prior to. It doesn't matter what you're feeling. It only matters that you're willing to feel it and to truly feel it. And in the end, true feeling transcends the desire to be limited or less than you are. So everybody has a desire to be half of who you are or less than half. Because when you start to connect to that which you truly are, it's completely overwhelming to the separate sense of self. So what you have to recognize, you can kind of visually think about this. The separate sense of self is a contraction of consciousness. So it's like this hard ball of hell, you could say. It's just dense and hard, contracted. And if you just take your hands right now and you squeeze your hands really, really hard. So everybody do it with me just for a sec. So take your hands and squeeze as hard as you possibly can. Keep doing it as hard as you possibly can. Like, keep going. You see how much effort you have to do to contract your own consciousness? You see how uncomfortable it is? You see how restricted it is? Okay. So now relax the hands and just open them. It doesn't take any effort whatsoever at all. And then you're in touch with something that is much bigger. But you will be completely overwhelmed, because if you're identified with this as who you are, and you start to see through this, through the awakening process and through the sacrifice of your ego and the willingness to feel, you see, you're going to go from an identification with something small and contracted to all of a sudden you're going to go, I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. I don't know how to be. I know I'm just free and happy, but this is so new because I'm used to being the exact opposite. So everybody on this path, you have to be prepared to be shocked into truth. So if you're used to living a lie and all of a sudden your world is blown apart, you're probably going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, but in that moment, you have a choice. Oh my God, I'm completely overwhelmed. A bit more than a little uncomfortable, but you're completely overwhelmed. You see, in that moment, what are you going to do? Are you going to run back and contract and not feel that overwhelm? Or are you going to allow yourself to feel the overwhelm? Just feel the overwhelm of your true self and allow yourself to just be shattered. Allow the egoic illusion to be shattered in that moment. And sometimes this will happen spontaneously. So maybe a lot of you have had experiences where all of a sudden, the doors of perception open and your identity as being a separate self, it just disappears. And you don't recognize it as that, but you just forget about yourself. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm so completely relaxed. Everything is shining. I'm out in nature and I completely disappear and I lose myself. Those are all just gifts. Those are gifts to show you what's possible. It's to show you who you are. It's not an experience that you're having. So most of the time what we think is we're having this, this is who I am. And every once in a while I have an experience that's a little bit better than that. That's usually how we look at things. But what I'm saying is this is who you are. You're living like this, so you have to get back to this. But this is who you are. It's not an experience. It's your natural state. So you're not trying to have an experience of who you are. That's from an egoic position. You have to sacrifice the ego. And the way you do it is you allow yourself to feel the intensity of your own contraction, or you allow yourself to actually be with that which is prior to the contraction, that which is unlimited, free. I mean, it's very difficult to actually think about what freedom is because the mind is not wired to understand freedom. Freedom is something that you can only recognize when it's occurring. And freedom is something that you can feel in the heart that pulls you forward so you can actually give yourself to that. Everybody with me so far? So it's very simple. Feeling is basically the willingness to feel is going to shine light on the illusion of ego. And in that moment, you need to sacrifice it. You need to sacrifice that position of ego that you know yourself to be so you can find out who you really are. So I'm just about done, but I just want to say one more thing. So true feeling will basically ignite a fire that will burn through all egoic patterns. Every time you're willing to feel, then no matter how many egoic patterns you identify with in that moment, it will ignite a fire that will burn through those patterns. And if you think about it, these patterns are not real because as soon as you don't give yourself to them, they disappear. And real feeling creates a heart which then transmutes into light. So there's a saying that my teacher says, and it's basically, there is no light without heat. So the willingness to feel creates heat. So just think about it. When you're actually willing to feel the pain, the intensity, the insecurity, the happiness, the joy, it creates heat. And why is it creating heat? Because it's challenging your identification with egoic patterns. So in that moment, you need to sacrifice that egoic pattern. And when you do that, that heat will transmute to light. But you will not be able to actually see the to get in touch with the light if you're avoiding the heat. You can't do it. So in how I'm expressing this, the heat is the willingness to feel. And if you stay with the willingness to feel, that heat will transmute to light. And when it transmutes, it's in that moment that the egoic pattern is actually sacrificed. Because you want to feel more than you want to be afraid. And when you do that and you sacrifice that, remember the description of sacrifice is to actually give up that which no longer serves you. So I think everybody can agree with me that living a contracted life and believing that you are what you think and you are what you feel and you're a conditioned human being and that's always the way it's going to be. That's what you need to sacrifice. But it's not a thing. It's not a solid structure. It's not who you are. Basically, all you're doing is you're sacrificing the habit of believing that you are what you think and what you feel. That's what you're sacrificing. So you're sacrificing an illusion of separation. So if you think about it, why is sacrificing an illusion of separation such a big deal? It's because you think it's you. But as soon as you get less interested in protecting yourself, your separate sense of self, because you actually want the light more than you want the contraction, you see, you won't be so interested in doing that anymore. and then things will start to shift. So at the beginning, it's hard because the center of gravity of who you know yourself to be is the separate self, and you're waking up to something else. So you have to do the work in order to bear the intensity of that purification process. But the more you bear that intensity of the purification, the more understanding you have, the more you recognize yourself to be that which is prior to the egoic patterns. So you can continue. It still can be very intense, but it will get less intense when you sacrifice more and more times the separate sense of self. So anyway, I think that's what I want to say. And I hope, I think I made it very, very simple. Feeling is the willingness to sacrifice the separate sense of self. Feeling will bring you heat that you don't want to escape, which will be transmuted to light, which is your true self. And it's why everybody's on this call, because that's what you want. Are you sick of being who you think you are and you just want to be who you are? I mean, really, that should be a bumper sticker. Everybody who's sitting in traffic, are you sick of who you are? It's like, some people might not get it, but it's something to think about. Okay, so I just want to sit for a few minutes because I've said quite a lot. So if everybody just kind of takes a moment and just sitting up straight again and closing your eyes, and just don't try to figure anything out. Don't try to remember anything I've said. Just feel right now whatever it is you're feeling, which means you relax and you receive. You're not trying to create an experience. You're just feeling whatever is happening right now. You can't make anything happen. All you can do is be willing to feel. You're not guaranteed any white light experience. You're not guaranteed anything. You feel for the sake of feeling. You feel because the heat is more alive than the numbness of not feeling. You feel because you want to be alive. Okay, so take a deep breath in and exhale. Relax, release, be happy. And open your eyes. Okay. The truth is very, very simple. So what I said was very, very simple, but it's very hard for human beings to embrace simplicity. It's much easier to avoid simplicity, which means not to feel. Because feeling the simplicity of the truth, it will rock your world. And it's so contrary to the complexity that we normally engage with. It's completely the opposite. So anyway, so this is the time for some questions, or you can share your experience or any insights you might have had over the webinar. Let's just talk about feeling and how good it is. Okay, Lisa.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Cynthia. Hi, everyone.
Oops, I can't hear you. Are you muted?
No, I don't know if everyone else can hear me.
Yes.
No, can't hear you.
Oh,
Can you guys hear?
Yes.
Oh, I know why I can't hear. Okay, can you try again?
yes. Hi.
It was me.
Hi, everyone. Well, it's not my first time meeting you, but it's my first time during a webinar. So hi, everyone. Right now, I was actually experiencing some of the things that you were saying because I wanted to speak and I wanted to share my truth, but my heart started to beat very fast and I started to feel very anxious. And I realized that's because I was actually feeling separated, isolated, and alone compared to the rest of the group, because this is the first time that I'm here.
Mhm.
So I decided actually to embrace that and to do what you suggested. And it actually helped. And that's why I'm a little bit more comfortable. And I thought, well, no, I'm going to embrace this being so uncomfortable. And suddenly I stopped being so uncomfortable and I stopped feeling more connected towards you all.
Right.
So it's actually helping me to continue this conversation with you.
Okay,
Well,
but before you go on, Lisa, because what you just said is super important. You see, you allowed yourself to feel, and then the separation that you were experiencing disappeared.
It did not disappear completely. For moments, yeah, for seconds, it disappeared completely. Then it came back, and now it's like in a lower intensity. It's still here, but sometimes it goes away, and then it comes back, and then it's always at a lower frequency or intensity compared to.
But it's not limiting your response, is it?
No.
Okay. So then it doesn't have the same power that it had when you were giving it your attention.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
Okay, so this is just important because it's that simple. Is you decided that you wanted to speak more than you wanted to be afraid. You decided you wanted to be with everybody more than you wanted to be separate.
Yeah,
and so
that's
what
true.
we're talking about.
Yeah, because I made that decision. Yeah, it was more important for me to feel that connection with you all through the sharing my thoughts and feelings or my truth about this than to be alone with the perception of being alone, separated, and apart from you all. So it was a choice. Yeah, that's true.
Right. But can we say, so just bear with me. So can we say that it was just the simple desire for you to be with everybody?
Yes.
It wasn't really about you having to share your truth and share your experience. It was more fundamental than that. You just wanted to be with everybody.
Sharing the truth was just a way to do it because it makes sense in the webinar. It makes sense because this is a Q&A. So it's a Q&A. So the way for me to share it is first be here in presence. And that's the most important one. And the other one is doing what we're supposed to be doing in a Q&A, which is asking questions.
No, but listen, it's more simple than that. So I appreciate that you're coming forward, but this is what always happens. You might be thinking one thing when you're asking the question, but maybe something else is going on. So just bear with me a little bit, and you don't have to believe me, but just, bear with me a little bit. So basically you wanted to be with everybody more than you wanted to be separate, right?
Yes.
So as we're sitting here, you see, we're just talking, we're having a dialogue. We're not having a dialogue about your, particularly what you think or what you already know. We're just here in relationship, having a dialogue, not really talking about what you thought we were going to talk about, but we're just together. And then there's a recognition, there's a recognition right now that you see, you don't have to do anything or talk about anything in particular, even if you're in a Q&A and you're supposed to ask a question, we're going to set all that aside. What's happening is you're aware right now, I'm aware, and I think everybody else is aware, that what's happening is that the truth is that we're not separate. We've never been separate. Our unity is not dependent upon anything. It's not dependent on me sharing my truth with you and you sharing your truth with me. It's just the willingness to be together. And then all of a sudden, that imposition of separation is dropped and we're just together. We could talk about anything.
Yeah, I think.
Or nothing.
What you're telling me is that, and that resonates a lot, is that I don't have to do anything to be loved. And that's one of my deep wounds.
Exactly, because you are love. The only thing you have to do is stop probably insisting, and everybody does this, stop insisting that you're not loved.
Yeah. And that I have to do something to be loved.
Right, because you have to prove that you're actually worthy of love. But that's all coming from a conditioned beliefs that have risen throughout your whole life, probably, like everybody. But it's a fundamental position of I'm already rejected. Because the position is I'm already rejected and I need love in order to feel connected. And so what I'm saying is you've never been rejected fundamentally. Everybody's been rejected by somebody multiple times. But fundamentally, this assumption of rejection is not true because we are always that one consciousness. You cannot be rejected from yourself. And so when we don't impose that rejection, you recognize that we're already together and there's love. There's just a joy of having this conversation. And you don't have to do anything. You're just here with me. You don't have to prove to me that you're worthy of love. You don't have to do anything because you already are okay. But this is where the title comes in, because you feel the pain of that imposition of rejection. You can feel the pain of it if you feel like you've been seeking for love and you recognize that you're already love, like you just said. Then you can also recognize at the same time the pain of seeking for something that's always already the case. There's nothing wrong with you. But we spend our whole life trying to prove that I'm worthy of love when we're already that. And of course, we all have egoic patterns that we need to transcend, and we can be nasty people sometimes. But if we take care of this fundamental presumption that you need to do something in order to be love and to give love, if we get rid of that fundamental presumption, then we're already in touch with that which is prior to, and then there will be a natural response to other people because you won't be coming from a place of proving. You won't be coming from a place of protection. And that's what I was talking about earlier in the talk.
It's amazing that you were talking and I was listening. I was completely listening to what you were saying. And I had this insight at the same time that I was listening. That is, what I was about to ask in the first place no longer matters, because you asked me to please surrender yourself completely to what our experience right now. And I realized that my first question was just a mechanism of control, so I could avoid truly feeling what I'm feeling right now due to this thing that happened spontaneously. So it's
exactly, that's it. You see how it's perfect the way you're describing it. So this is really cool because you see how you're very aware of your experience and you're able to articulate it clearly, really simply and really clearly. Okay. Now the challenge for you is going to be to actually live that, because what you just said, if you live what if you start to practice and live what you just said, so you're not going with the first identification of thought, you're just with your own feeling, no matter what it is, and then you're willing to respond in the way that you are. You see, your whole life will change. It will take effort, though. It will take effort sometimes because it's going to be intense.
Because I said it, and as soon as I said it, my heart started beating very fast. So the intensity of the feeling came when I was very truthful.
Right, but that's it. Okay, listen, you're making this really easy for me. I really appreciate it because you're using the word truthful, right? So you got to recognize when your heart starts beating like crazy is because you're getting in touch with that which is prior to truth. It's like it's like becoming alive. And at the same time, it might be that fear arises because at the same time you're getting in touch with who you truly are. You're also simultaneously recognizing, oh my God, I'm not that who I thought I was, but I don't really know what this is because it's new. So there can be fear and complete, like, that's what the purification process is you start to feel this like, oh, I'm alive. It's like being breathed for the first time. And then you can also go, oh my God, this means something completely different than how I live. Oh my God, I don't know how that is. I don't know what to do. So both can be going on, but you see, then you just feel that fear. And then the same thing happens that you just described. You feel the fear of freaking out that you're becoming alive, but you become more alive because you're not avoiding the fear, the feeling of fear. Because fear is fear. You got to look at fear. It's kind of like if you think of, you've got two guards at a gate, and the gate that you're going to go through is freedom. And you've got basically two nasty looking guards at the gate, and there's just fear, right? And most of the time people walk up, they're very inspired, they walk up, they feel a little fear, they collapse and they run the other direction. So when that moment you walk up and you feel, you feel that fear, instead of collapsing, you just feel it, like you said. You just feel it. And then all of a sudden what happens is you recognize there are no guards. You've never not been free. You're always here and you're happy right now, even though nothing has changed, because you're still a conditioned human being, but now you have a different perspective. Amazing, isn't it amazing, Lisa?
Oh, it's a lot.
It's a really big deal. You're going to have to watch the recording of this webinar because when you get off, I guarantee you're going to go, I don't know what just happened there.
Thank you all.
Yeah, well, thank you, because you were very clear about, and you were very honest the way you articulated, and also you dropped a lot of ideas that you were having, and you were willing to just hear me. So that shows a lot of interest and it shows a lot of humility. So if you have interest in humility, to be interested in what you don't know, what you don't already know, and you're leaning into that which is unknown, you see, that's all you need. And then that's your practice again and again and again. And every moment that you do that, just like you've recognized now, you see, you get in touch with that which is always already the case. You're not trying to do something so you can perfect your enlightenment so that somewhere in many years, you're going to actually experience freedom. No, you're going to do it right now, be willing to feel like you're doing. And then freedom, it's like, boom, oh my God, there it is. And what happened is your egoic patterning, who you thought was yourself, just completely just moved into the background so far, you don't really care about it in this moment. But it's going to move into the foreground again. But then again, you just feel it. You just feel it. And you're like, I don't like that. What is that? Okay, you feel it. But then if you're willing to feel it, then the same thing happens. That just happens now. Okay, well, thank you. I really appreciate the dialogue with you. Okay. Anybody else? Come on, that was a good one. I know that was a hard one to follow because that was really exciting. But don't let, if you have any impulse. Oh, good. David, go ahead. Nice to see you again.
Hello, Cynthia.
Hi.
Pleasure to be here. Let me just start by saying that I'm a big fan of your podcasts. Unfortunately, there is no more episodes, so I'm making a second round.
You know what? I'm really sorry about that. People have told me I should start doing them, and I think about doing them, and I actually start to do them. I've got so much going on now. I just don't get to them, but they are on my radar. So I tell you that.
No problem. It's like reading The Little Prince. You always have a second perspective. hearing
Okay.
it again.
Okay.
So I'm not really organizing what I'm going to say, but I'm just going to speak because, as usual, I feel my heart very light and my mind very stormy when I hear to these kind of things, and it's about two things, and maybe the connection of it. It's about to feel, and at the same time, the thing you said about the bump sticker too. Are you tired of being of not being of being yourself? And it's like uh, imagining myself like when I was younger, for example, and I could even think that I was so much into feeling and to be open to feeling. And by the time I was growing and contracting with the experience, um, it's I started to be more contracted, no? So I I am less able to feel the way I feel, and this is one of the things that brings me here. It's not actually to not be who I want is it's very hard to explain. um, I'm what attracts me here is that I actually can be what I want without any protection, and I think it's a little bit this way. Well, at least the way I feel, because I want so much to feel and to be open to feel, but it's just like sometimes the world around it's not corresponding. So um, yeah, it's
Why is it not corresponding? Why is it not
I don't know,
corresponding?
because I think it's not only with me that I feel this contraction. No, I feel it especially after the experience that I had in Avidenge and the Awakened Life, which you actually you all show me a beautiful way, and I become much more aware, and I've been doing my work and even trying to implement it. But what I've realized is that most people they don't care. They're just not open to it, and um, in some way uh, I try to feel and to show others that they can feel as well, but in the other ways, like it kind of I was not in a good place to do that. It's very hard to explain. It's just like
Yeah, but the only thing you can really do, David, is you can only take on your own reactions and your own relationship to whatever's occurring in any time. Okay, so you have to start here. The finger should always be pointed at yourself, and forget about the other people, because anytime you point the finger the other direction, you're taking a victim position automatically. And everybody does this. You're saying that I'm in a situation where I can't be free. Those other people are doing whatever they're doing, so therefore I can't. And that's the victim position. And it's not true, because you can change your relationship to whatever's happening. You can also change your environment if you find yourself in an environment that's not supportive of your longing for liberation. You know, if you're an alcoholic and you're trying to not drink anymore, then you don't want to be hanging out with a bunch of people who are drinking all the time, maybe. And so I think it's just super important. And what you're bringing up is what a lot of people bring up. Almost every retreat, we get this question. But the liberating thing is the recognition that who you are prior to everything that's happening in this world is already is pure. It's never been touched by time. You are that which is prior to. So it's just like what Lisa was saying. She had this idea that she had to do something to be loved. Everybody has an idea that they're messed up and they have to do something before they can be themselves. And the case is that it's twofold. One is freedom is always here and now, and all you have to do is allow yourself to feel whatever it is that's happening in those moments where you feel people are doing something to you. So maybe you just have to feel what it feels like to be victimized by life. But when you allow yourself to feel it, you see that moment, something's going to open up for you. Because you had the same kind of conflict when you came here for the 10-day retreat last year.
Mm.
You had the same conflict of being surrounded by people who weren't necessarily supporting your heart's longing for freedom, right?
Yeah, but it's actually that it's a little bit different, I guess, now.
Why is
Because it's not, before I was surrounded by people who do the opposite of supporting, you know. Right now I don't feel this opposition of supporting. It's
So then why are you talking, maybe it's a different thing, but why are you asking the question in a way that the other people who are around you in some way limit your possibility of being free? Why are you saying that?
maybe it's just me who does not know how to deal with it still, with all the information I have, and or perhaps I'm feeling special because of my late experiences of in spirituality. I don't know. I just feel I could. Yeah, it might be that, because I saw so much, and so much love in the pure way, that all I want to transmit is that. And sometimes, or I'm not making it
Right.
the right way, or and it's a possibility. I don't know. I didn't dig
Right.
it that much, but or the other person, it's not really open. It's contracted to the point that it will not get me. And one of the things I understood is that part of me has to protect, because sometimes people can affect us with their own contractions, but at the same time, like something I talked with Rui, that he told me, and I agreed immediately, that even if I can protect myself from that happen again, I can always be available to what's to come.
Yeah, but what I hear from you, so that's true, what Rui told you. But see, what I hear from you is you actually experienced something, like you said, you experienced a purity, you experienced a simplicity, and you experienced something that you'd already, I can't even talk, you always have been looking for. Because I remember you said something like that. So then now you're back in the world, and you're frustrated because you're not able to live what you've recognized. So that frustration is something that is just going to be part of your life, because the process of actually learning to live that truth that you recognized, that's where the work comes in. And so be more interested in your own frustration, be more interested in what you want to live. And again, don't point the finger outward on other people, because what you're doing is you're projecting your frustration, it sounds like. And instead of bringing it here and feeling the frustration and just going, God, and maybe when you actually feel that frustration, maybe it has implications that something you're going to have to change, something of how you're relating. You're going to have to change maybe your perspective. You're going to have to maybe change how you live. Some change is demanded in all transformation. That's why it's transforming. Something has to change. It's not you, because who you are is already completely whole. But you, as the body mind named David, you have certain patterns that need to be made obsolete. And the only way you make a pattern obsolete is by fully feeling. And that's the opposite of fighting with the pattern, trying to change the pattern. An egoic pattern is never going to change. The only thing that's going to change your life is your relationship to the egoic pattern. So if you have a pattern of being frustrated and pointing the finger outward, then you have to take care of that pattern yourself. And you have to recognize that nobody can take your freedom away from you, no matter what. Nobody. And that's the opposite of the victim position. It's the opposite. And it'll make you sit up straight and you're like, yeah, right. I always have a choice on how I relate to everything. And I'm learning. I've experienced a lot of depth and a lot of freedom and a lot of love. And I've experienced that there's a way to live. And I'm not able to do that yet. And just be kind to yourself and just go, okay, so what? I'm just like, I'm in a process. I need to give myself. I need to get on a webinar. I need to listen to podcasts. But you see, you're listening to those and you're doing that because you want to transcend this restriction, that you feel. So that's a good thing. But I think where you're at right now, David, is you've seen a lot. I mean, you saw a lot and you experienced a lot when I saw you last year in August. Something happened to you. And then you recognize, oh my God, this is a lot, which it is. But looking at you now, I would say that you're more mature than when you were last year. You're more calm, you're more stable. So whatever you've been doing, it seems like something is happening. Something is heading in the right direction. So now maybe what I'm saying to you now is just keep going, but don't put the finger out, put the finger here and have humility that you're not going to be able to live what you saw last summer just like that. I mean, it's possible, but most of the time it doesn't work like that. But that's the beauty, because then you're kind of you're just with like-minded people. You can engage with like-minded people and we're all in the same boat. We're all already free and we're all works in progress that need to transcend egoic patterns. And we can just be together in that and we can feel the intensity of that.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of something that Pete said once, that after starting this journey, there are people that were your friends that might not be anymore. And there's no problem in that. It's just something about the identification, or it's just a different path, I guess. And I'm feeling that this very in the skin. And it's not that I don't love who is around, no matter who is around.
Right.
But it's it's strange at the same time, because there's a big sense of love in me, but it starts to have this lack of identification with some group of people. I don't know, it's like, just like you said, that we are alike, people alike. No, it's much easier to rose in a lot of senses.
Yeah, and also, sometimes what happens is, you do have friends and, you love your friends and, or a group of people, but then something changes and you're just no longer, you're kind of going your separate ways. But in that movement of realizing, wow, this isn't really serving, it's not a case of serving me, because that sounds very cold and cut off.
Yeah.
Just that this isn't how I want to live, but you can actually disengage from a relationship with a group of people or with someone else, just a person. And it doesn't mean that you impose separation. You don't take a position of being superior or inferior. You don't take any position against anybody. It's just a recognition that maybe you're interested in something else now and they're not interested in what you're interested in anymore. And that's perfectly fine. And there can be a sadness because there's a relationship that is changing. So you can be sad without separating. You cannot engage with people and you don't have to separate. But the main thing is that you give yourself to your own longing for liberation. And that's the most important thing to you. And when you do that for real, you see, you might leave relationships, but you'll do it in a way that honors the relationship, and it honors who you are and what you're in touch with. And you may not want to spend time with the same people anymore, but you don't divide. Physically doing something different doesn't mean that you're dividing or separating. It just means you're doing something different.
Yeah, totally.
It's very simple.
Yeah, I'm.
Is that part of what?
I don't feel I'm divided actually, because in some way the people I love, it's still always the people I love. Even there are some people that I don't see for years now, and I think them a lot. I don't know why. I'm attached to experiences and to feelings, and I cannot avoid it. They're just with me at some point, no? But it's something that makes me realize that life goes on, and there's not there's no bad in it. And
Yeah. You know, I just want to ask you a question though, two questions kind of. Is there anything that you're pulled to do, but you're afraid and you're not doing it?
like, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, because I'm kind of wondering what your question at the beginning was, because it doesn't seem like there's any problem. You're kind of describing now everything, it all sounds good. But when you first started speaking, it seemed like there was some kind of conflict or problem with the world and the other people, and the support wasn't there. And so with that, and listening to you now, I'm just wondering is if you feel like compelled to do something, or there's some kind of, there's some kind of pull to change something in your life and you're avoiding it. You don't have to tell me if there is. I'm just wondering if there is.
Yeah, I mean, it's very complex thing. It's very related to the past, to what happened to me. But I think that the important thing is not if something is pulling me to do something or not, is the way I react to it. And my original question was actually trying to, it's the impacts I want to have in people the same way people have with me. It's like I had this thinking of giving and receiving, and if we live in an environment which is about giving, we don't have to think about receiving, because it naturally happens. If someone is giving, the receiving will happen naturally.
Well, in the best scenario, but a lot of times some people are really, really good at giving, but they're not very good at receiving.
Yeah.
And so what?
I'm that kind.
Okay.
A little bit.
So it's not that natural. And the reason, so you have to look at this. So I'm glad we're talking about this. So if somebody's giving something to you and you're unwilling to receive, the only reason you wouldn't receive is because there's some kind of unworthiness that you don't deserve to receive what's being given. And then that's an egoic position, because you're basically saying that you're not worthy to receive, even though someone is giving you something. Okay, so that's an egoic position, and you are stopping the flow of love between you and whoever in that moment. So you have to actually maybe find it in yourself to just open up and receive. So, I'll just tell you this very simply. This is a big thing for everybody. And I did a women's retreat recently, and I've done this before in other retreats, but for whatever reason. So you have a group of people and you put one person in the middle, and every person just says what they appreciate about the person in the middle. And the person in the middle is facing that person, the person's telling them, and all the person in the middle gets to do is say, thank you. And it does something not only to the person who's receiving, because sometimes you want to say, oh, no, it's okay. You want to say anything else other than just thank you. And then what also happens is the people on the outside of the circle, when they're doing an act of appreciation, it opens their heart. When the person's in the middle and they say thank you, it opens their heart. Then you have a natural flow of love because there's no egoic positions being taken. So I think for you, the practice should be to really focus on receiving and forget about trying to give to other people, because it sounds like, if you're just yourself, you're giving. But the best thing you can give to another person is the ability to receive. Because then you're sacrificing your egoic position.
That was strong. It is.
Okay. So I think we got there in the end then, because I think it's this. And, I just got to tell you, so many people feel unworthy of receiving because you're already in this position of being rejected. It's already like, I know they're going to reject me, or there's just an unconscious position that I'm unlovable and I'm already rejected. And so you can't receive, because you have to, in order to receive, you would have to feel the pain of that belief. Doesn't mean it's true, but if you believe it and you're afraid to look at it and you won't feel it, you see, you aren't going to be able to receive love. So you're craving love. This is just a classic teaching. We went through a whole teaching with this. Actually, I did 3 webinars on this topic recently: the ritual of rejection, the wound of love, and taking things as a hurt instead of an insult. So if you haven't seen those 3 webinars, watch them, because it can help you with what you're describing. It rocked my world when I got a hold of this teaching, and I really gave myself to the teaching over this winter. It just blew my whole world apart. So I encourage you to have your own world apart too, because I can tell you it's really good having your world blown apart.
Yeah, I've been in one of them, actually.
Okay, well, watch them again, especially since I'm not doing any more podcasts anytime soon. So you'll have time. Anyway, it's good to talk with you. You should come to the 10-day retreat again.
Yeah, I'm in France right now, but it's scheduled. I'm planning on coming to Avidanja maybe. Let's see what the future arises.
Okay,
cool. To see if I can be closer to the circle where I felt home. Actually.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Good. But really take this thing on of giving and receiving and the whole rejection. And I really do encourage you to watch those 3 webinars, because I think they're really good and they'll help you.
I will. Thank you, Cynthia.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, that was perfect. 9:30, David, we finished right on the mark. That's impressive. Okay, so yeah, I usually like to try to finish on time, because there's a certain intensity, if you guys can feel it. If we continue to talk and talk and talk, so much has already been said. You can just kind of get saturated and then you just kind of shut down. So I like to finish where everybody's just kind of like vibrating and happy and still have space. So yeah, so let's do that again. Let's take just a moment and sit quietly together, and then we'll finish. Okay, when you're ready, just take a deep breath in and feel the breath and release and relax. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay. Sometimes I feel at the end we could just meditate for easily, just drop into a meditation and stay for an hour or two. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Laura, so she's going to do her magic. Okay.
Okay, so tomorrow I will, well, in the next couple of days when the recordings are uploaded, I'm going to send everybody the recordings, the links for the recordings. But I also just want to say that we're all really, really excited to hear about the 10-day retreat that's coming from the 7th to the 17th of August. And it's going to be amazing. It's always amazing. And it's hard to, if you haven't been on it, it's hard to describe quite how amazing it is. Because it's a real immersion of 5 days of meditation with a group of really serious, interested people. And then 5 days of teaching and love and intimacy. And yeah, it's always an explosion of consciousness. So, oh, somebody's saying mute. Okay. So I really encourage anyone who has the pull to come. There's several people on the screen who are already coming, which is fantastic. I'll send all the details in the email, but there's only 8 places. And I would really love anyone who wants to come, who's here tonight, to come. So don't hesitate if you have a pull, because it's going to be amazing and you don't want to miss it. And it will be the last retreat of this year, last opportunity to be with Cynthia live. And yeah, I mean, I could go on all night about how good the retreat is, but it really is, if you're interested in freedom and what Cynthia's been talking about tonight, then you just can't beat it. So that's all I will say.
Okay. Okay. So we're actually going to also, with our community, I'm very excited because on Saturday we start a retreat for 7 days and we're going to have 40 women here. And it's going to be amazing. 40 women, you guys, it's going to be amazing. We're all very excited. So really, the men in our community just had a retreat, and it was very, very good. It always it always informs the next retreat, which is the women's retreat, and then the women's retreat always informs the next retreat, which is the 10-day retreat. So it's and we had a public women's retreat in May, so that's already informed something. So it's just everything informs everything, and as we do these webinars, I think you guys relate to that, but also in your own lives, just recognize that everything you do now informs what you do in the next moment. So then you want to be, you want to give yourself as much as you can now, because then the next now is going to be informed by that giving and not by that contraction. So it's important. Okay, so let's open up the microphones and yeah, we just call it a night. It's really nice to see everybody.
Happy birthday, Yana.
Hi, David.
Hi, David.
Hi.
Seeing you.
Hi, Alma. How are you?
Hi, Alberta.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Cynthia.
thank you. Hi,
Thank
Joseph.
Hello.
Good night.
Good night. Hi, Tina.
Bye.
Good to see you. Lapo, there you are. Am I going to get an email from you, Lapo? Did he leave? He must know I was going to say that. Anyway, yeah, it's good to see everybody. Josette, you look like a mystery man. All you can see.
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Cynthia.